Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. I am here today with Mark Schaefer, and I'm so excited to be talking to him about his new book, Audacious. It is, Mark, I think it's my most favorite book of yours yet.
Oh, thank you. It might be my most favorite book too. It was just so much fun to write.
Yeah, and it's a fun book to read. I mean, it's very educational and informative, and I learned a lot. But the QR codes and the videos and the all the little Easter eggs that you put in the book, you talk about how as marketers we need to do a better job of creating awe and memorable moments for our clients, and I feel like you really did that for your readers in the book. It's different
Yeah,
than anything I've
thank
seen
you,
before.
thank you. That means a lot. Certainly I was trying to do something out of the normal and a bit disruptive, and believe me, that's not easy in the publishing industry.
No, no, it's
I mean, they've
not.
been basically following the same playbook for 200 years, and it's really hard to do anything different.
Yeah, I love the disclaimer at the beginning that AI did not write your book.
Yes. AI did not write my book, but AI certainly played a role in the book, especially the cover of the book, as you probably
Yeah,
noticed.
yeah, but I think that that disclaimer is probably something that will become more and more common, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Well, it's one of the things I mentioned in the book, this idea of proof of human. I've
Hmm.
done that on my blog too, Lisa. Every one of my blog posts has a little badge that says 100% human content because I want to assure people that this is me. It's always me. You can count on me. I'm going to be here for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because the personal brand, we're always going to turn to a human being to help us
Hmm.
navigate the truth, especially in this world of misinformation and deep fakes. So I want to assure people that I'm still here.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. This morning I posted something on Facebook about AI, and I said, in the last week I've had three different situations occur where AI is now commenting as people on social media posts. And so one, I saw a colleague of mine apologizing on a whole bunch of comments on Instagram because her AI bot misfired. And then I had a woman comment on something on LinkedIn. And when I looked at her profile, she works in AI, and the comment just it felt a little weird.
Yeah,
So I
sure.
replied and I said, "Did you write this or did AI?" And she replied and said, "AI did. It helps me, engage with people, yada, yada." And I'm like, "Oh, so I'm not really talking to you." All right. And then the third one, I had posted something about an event that I hosted. And, speaking of objects and things that can be memorable for people, I gave everybody a pair of socks with hearts on them. And I told them that whenever they get cold feet, they need to put these socks on and remember that they are loved and that they are capable of doing the thing that they really want to do. And this woman who I've never met before commented about having hers on and being ready. And I replied and I said, "Did AI write this for you? Because you weren't there and I didn't give you a pair of these socks."
Mm,
And she came back and deleted the comments. And so,
yeah.
I feel like,
I'm starting to call people out, in sort of like a nurturing way, because especially on LinkedIn, I can tell, it
yeah,
sort of stands out. And maybe there will come a day when I'm wrong. But so far I've been able to, I know when it's AI. And what I write is, look, I don't want you to, first of all, what I've heard is on your post, do not engage with them. Do not
right.
like it. Do not respond. But then I'll write that person and I'll say, look, you're using AI to write your comments. I don't want you to do that anymore. You can do better.
Hmm.
And about half the time people actually apologize.
Hmm.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
it's so annoying.
People are looking for the easy button in marketing. And that's one of the things that I love about your book. So I have a workshop coming up in June with a colleague of mine in Canada, and we are teaching people some things about how to use AI. And I'm very much, how do you use AI in your marketing to help you versus replace you? I like to take things and put it into AI and say, tell me how I could write this better, or tell me what's missing. Don't do it for me, but teach me, help me learn how to be better in terms of some of the writing that I do. And, one of the things that I said to her is, what can we do to create some awe-inspiring moments at this event? What can we do to be memorable? What can we do to actually make people want to talk about their experience? And that's all because of your book. It's really making me think differently about awe. So I have some questions for you. One of the questions I have is, I'm really interested in your opinion. You talk a lot about how digital content is going to become a reflection of our interests and beliefs, like a complete reflection of our interests and beliefs. And so what do you see as the risks of bias and division? Because if everything that we consume digitally now is really becoming a reflection of our interests and our beliefs, do we not run the risk of living in a marketing echo chamber?
Well, we already are, 100%. I mean, everything is curated for us. We have abdicated the idea of choosing our own content to a Netflix algorithm, to a LinkedIn algorithm, to a Facebook algorithm, to a newsfeed algorithm. So, the social media platforms, the news platforms, the entertainment platforms probably know more about us than we do. And so it is keeping us in a chamber. And that's why one of the comments I made in the book, which I think is a business opportunity, is serendipity is a luxury. So, I mean, finding something new and inspiring and challenging in the ecosystem we live in today, that would be an algorithmic fail for us to find something new. Now, what if companies helped us find something new? What if companies did something so interesting, so worthy, so unmissable that it took us out of our bubble? That would be cool. That's a huge opportunity. Create serendipity for people. Introduce them to something crazy and new.
How? So, one of my questions for you is, a lot of the examples that you used in the book are cool things that I'm going to say bigger companies have done. So if you're, let's say, a solopreneur, or you're a Mark Schaefer, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a consultant and a teacher. You're not, I don't think you have this great big huge staff of people that are working with you. So if you're one of those solo people, what are some of the ways that you can do that?
Well, I was very careful to address that in the book. And there was actually, a point in the book, I think the first two chapters talk about, an activation on the Empire State Building, and then an activation that's a music video on TikTok. And I said, at this point, everyone, you're thinking, oh, this is great, I'm inspired. But, hey, I'm just sweating here in a cubicle. What am I supposed to do? So, the book is filled with literally hundreds of examples of small businesses, even nonprofits and universities and, entrepreneurs, because I wanted to show that not only can you do this with few resources, I actually went out of my way to demonstrate sometimes when you have a big budget, it inhibits creativity. And,
I enjoyed that.
I see that in my world every day. I work with some of the biggest brands on the planet. I work with small businesses and entrepreneurs. And the small businesses and entrepreneurs, they're going to win in this environment because they're fast, they're responsive. I mean, speed today is so important. And, I think I've got this quote. I think I've got this quote I do. I have this quote in the book where I was working with one of the biggest consumer product companies in the world. I mean, there is no such thing as a budget in their world. I mean, they've got all the money, you could want, and the biggest advertising agency contracts. And I was talking to them about community and word of mouth marketing, and the brand manager literally came up to me and said, "Well, I understand that. I know we get to, the message needs to be carried by our customers, but once we do that, how do we control the message?" And I just literally almost fell out of my chair. So, I mean, small businesses, they understand that. They don't have that fear. They've got less to lose. They don't have this legal department breathing down their necks. And so I think, look, I hope everybody is inspired by this book, but I think it's especially a book of hope for the smaller businesses.
I'm thinking of a solopreneur, though. So I'm thinking about a consultant who, I don't know, maybe they're a consultant in the leadership space, or maybe they're a consultant in philanthropy, or they're a consultant in healthcare, and they're a solo practitioner, and maybe they're a bit risk averse. And some of this awe-inspiring stuff feels a little scary to them because it's not quite in their lane. What would you tell them to do?
Well, I can't fix scared. I mean, and I talk about that directly. At the end of the book, I've got a chapter called The Most Important Chapter in the Book. Mm-hmm. Because here I am through the whole book saying, look, if you're competent, that isn't going to cut it anymore because the bots are competent. They're coming for you. Mm-hmm. It's already happening. It's nipping at the skill sets, our skill sets. They're nipping at our careers. We're already starting to see job loss. Mm-hmm. And if you're if you're scared and you're operating at, this is the way we've always done it, there's I don't know what your job is, but I mean, there's a chance you could be eaten alive by AI. And this book is saying, where will we thrive? Where will we survive? And you've got to do something bold. You've got to somehow add your own humanity to the story, to the marketing. Now, sometimes there's good reasons to be cautious. Mm-hmm. You are in a world that is filled with legal constraints, pharma, wealth management, maybe banking. But there's still some things that you could do, but, I can understand you've got some regulations. However, if the reason that you don't want to change is because you're afraid, I want to challenge that. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is, creating something that breaks the norms or that disrupts the medium or disrupts the storyteller. It's a survival skill right now, and I think it's going to be coming fast.
So how would you advise somebody to? I guess where I'm trying to go is some of these creative ideas. It's kind of like when you were in the bathroom and you had to figure out how to take the picture.
What's going on here?
You got to read the book, guys. That photo that you took.
Oh, right.
And so you're in that dark bathroom with these other people and you're trying to do something completely different. But your brain didn't go there first. That's mm-hmm. not where the first place that you went to. Yeah. So for a lot of people, our marketing, it's, pardon my language, it's the same old shit. It's another carousel. It's another reel. It's another this. It's another that. How do people break the pattern and figure out a way to be disruptive? Because what people are doing now is they're just being copycats. Oh, I saw somebody have a conversation with my younger self. I'm going to have a conversation with my younger self. Oh, people are posting pictures with copy and their carousels. I'm going to use a picture. How do we just get our brains to stop being in that box and think differently?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's especially bad in like social media. There is nothing innovative going on. People just copy each other.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just,
you called it 2015 strategies.
yeah, yeah. Welcome to 2015. Um, well, okay. So a couple of things. First of all, at the end of every chapter, there are prompts, and what I've done is I had this amazing opportunity when I was doing the research on the book to literally talk to some of the greatest creative minds in the world. And I said, tell me your secrets. And they did. And I put them in the book. And there's little things, it's subtle things that don't cost a lot of money, and maybe it's not even that big of a risk. But like, so one of the things, Michael Kravica told me is he said, this is the guy, he is the king of viral video. He has created more number one YouTube videos than any person or business
Was
on
he the
earth.
guy with the video where they came out of the TV?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
was hilarious.
He's done these amazing things, and in my career, I have never met a person with a keener sense of storytelling than this man. It is just, it's like another sense to him. So, one of the things he told me was, people try to copy my style and they can't do it. And here's why: because they want it polished, they want it to be perfect. He said,
That's right.
my videos are never perfect. They're always, something is a little out of focus, or the edit wasn't just right, or maybe the audio was a little off, or there was this background noise like there's an ambulance going by. Now, in most cases, people would say, "Oh no, do it over, do it over." He said, "But if you make it a little glitchy, if you make it a little raw and dusty, it makes people feel like they're there." Now, that's one little way you can disrupt your content by
Don't make it
making
so
it a little,
polished.
just keeping it a little raw. And I will tell you that this is a mega trend right now. There was a story in, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, about 2 weeks ago. There's this backlash in the gaming industry where people that are making video games are spending billions of dollars to make these things feel real. And what the gamers are saying, we don't want it to be real. We want it to be like Super Mario. We want it to be asteroids. We want that sort of gritty.
I was really good at asteroids, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, I was too. We'll have a challenge someday. But so it's almost like people want you to be imperfect. It's a comfort. It's like saying, "Oh, this person really is real." I'll tell you another little story. Long ago, this guy came to me, and he was this executive in England, and he started this winery in Provence. He sold his business and he started this winery in Provence, and then he wanted to hire me as a marketing guy. And this guy really didn't know what he was doing. He said, "Well, I've been thinking about making videos. Here's an example of one of my videos." So here's this guy, this nice, button-down British guy, and he's standing on top of this giant grape harvester. And he says, many people think we still harvest our grapes by hand here in Provence. Oh, no, no, no. We use these big machines. And as he's speaking, the machine starts to move. It just jerks. And he's like losing his balance. And he's trying to be cool and tell the story. And here's why I started working with him. Because he kept it in. I would have said, stop, take two. But he knew how to tell a story. He knew how to be human. He had the courage to be vulnerable and to make a mistake and keep it in there. And I mean, the guy was a glorious success.
Yeah.
Glorious success. So that's just like one little thing. Just the another big part of the book, as we talk about awe. You mentioned it briefly a minute ago, right? And this is just like bringing people together in a special way for a shared experiences, for a shared experience. You see it in the paper every day. We live in a world where it's isolated and lonely, and people are depressed, and you can binge your entire media experience through your earbuds by yourself, on a couch.
Yep.
But when you bring people together to share art, music, food, a brand activation where you're not just seeing an ad, you're like experiencing what this brand is about. It creates awe and joy, this thing called collective effervescence, and people want to share it with others. And it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes stop doing what we're doing.
Well, I love the story about Liquid Death
Yeah,
and how they started.
yes,
Like literally, they
nothing.
didn't have products.
They didn't have it. Yeah, they didn't even have a product. They just made it up to see if anybody would be interested in it.
So they made it up and they spent, what was it, $1,000 on Facebook ads to see if they could sell the product.
Yeah.
And like, do you think that that type of strategy still works today?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Just think about it this way, Lisa. I mean, this is like, since I wrote the book, I like see the whole marketing world in a different way. Think about, so the guy that started Liquid Death, he was not passionate about water. Who's passionate about water? And I mean, the water industry, it's completely oversaturated with brands. We don't need another brand. But there was no brand that was interesting. What's the most interesting car company in the world? What advertisements are saying yes? What's the most interesting wine brand in the world? What's the most interesting pizza brand in the world? What's the best, most disruptive marketing in pizza right now? Nobody out pizzas the Hut. What does that even mean? It's terrible. Pizza is fun and joyful. It's a celebration. Everybody loves pizza. Young people love pizza. And it's boring. Everybody's doing the same thing. Oh, we have the best ingredients. Blah, blah, blah. Hot to your door. Everybody does that. So, who's going to be the Liquid Death of pizza? Who's going to be? And I'm not saying, kind of crazy gross like
Right.
liquid.
Yeah. No, I get
But
it. My husband didn't even know Liquid Death was water. He's like, isn't that like an energy drink? I'm like,
yeah,
no, it's
well, that's what
water.
makes it. Well, one of their famous ads is they've got these children drinking Liquid Death, and they're crazy, like they're at a party, right? They're dancing and the mother who's pregnant is drinking Liquid Death, and she's sitting back just smiling at her kids, and the tagline is, "Don't worry, it's just water," because it
Right.
feels like it's beer or something, right?
Right.
So I mean, the whole world is boring, and and so you just got to look at, if you just disrupt your industry a little bit, people are going to say, "Hallelujah! Finally, something that's interesting."
I think there's fear about maybe being too disruptive. So you talked about it, but you didn't talk about the Bud Light situation in your book.
And I did
And
talk about it,
yeah, like you didn't go into detail. You
right?
mentioned it. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, they did something very disruptive and they did it to try to be, I think, more inclusive. And they've faced a lot of backlash and lost a lot of business. So, what would you have advised them to do if you were working with them when that happened?
Well, I mean, that is a very, very complicated case study, and the fact of the matter is, it wasn't. They weren't trying to be disruptive. They had supported LGBTQ initiatives for years. They supported, parades and festivals. I mean, they've been doing this for years, and it just, there was one single Instagram post that sort of, caught the attention of fought the far right. We live in a world where, it doesn't take 100 people or 1,000 people to create a backlash. It's
Right.
5 people with big megaphones.
Right.
And it really hurt the brand. It really destroyed the brand.
Yeah.
But so I mean, so first of all, let's look at this at a very high level. This is something I'm very clear about in the book. Being disruptive does not mean being reckless. It doesn't mean being offensive. It doesn't mean being illegal. It doesn't mean it's just a stunt. It doesn't have to be loud. There's lots of examples in the book that are just small and clever and ingenious to think about your brand in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not about being disruptive. Is not about being reckless and loud. It's about making a difference, doing something different. And I mean, Bud Light, ironically, wasn't doing something different.
Right.
They were doing the same thing they had been doing for a decade, and it just it was one post that caught the wrong people at the wrong time. So, and unfortunately, that is kind of the measure that most people use today. It's that particular situation is sort of a one-off and extremely complex. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I give in the book why people are fearful. But I think we've got to experiment. We've got to push the edges, and
and you've got to be okay with it not being for everybody.
Well, here's the biggest mistake in the whole Budweiser saga, and this is a root cause that nobody really talked about that I know of except me, and it's this. So I was going down a highway, and I saw a billboard for Bud Seltzer. Budweiser Seltzer. Now, who's drinking seltzer? Gen Z. Okay? Now, what does Budweiser mean? Now, I actually know. Budweiser used to be my customer. I sold them $2 billion worth of packaging products every year. And I was inside their marketing, meetings. And Budweiser is a cowboy, a truck driver, country music. That's Budweiser. Now, what does it mean, Bud Seltzer? Budweiser Seltzer. Forget about Budweiser. It's counterintuitive to the target audience. They're trying to create all these products under one umbrella that doesn't mean anything to Gen Z. Now, who's Bud Light trying to appeal to? Basically upwardly mobile millennials, right? People who are at, music events and concerts and, right? And they want, maybe something with maybe some fewer calories. And so Bud Light is trying to appeal to this generation. Who were the protesters? It was the Budweiser people. It was the truck driver, cowboy, country music, kind of right-leaning people who never were the target audience for Bud Light in the first place. They're the Budweiser drinkers. So the Budweiser drinkers are protesting the Bud Light ads, right? Budweiser had a brand problem. It wasn't a brand activation problem. It was a branding problem that was a disaster waiting to happen for a long time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. What else do I want to ask you? I want to ask you about taboo, owning the streets.
Yeah.
Is that something you think we need to get back to? More of this like face-to-face, belly-to-belly, heart-to-heart ways of marketing versus like, I feel like everything is digital now and there's less of that people to people, like real people in front of real people thinking about marketing.
Yeah, well, the research still shows that most word of mouth marketing is face to face. It's or let's just put it, live conversations rather than, social media. Most people don't really post and engage on social media. They kind of watch and they kind of read, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a small percentage of the population are the ones that are actually posting and responding on social media. And there was research that was created by Ed Keller, who is a hero of mine. I consider him really the father of modern word of mouth marketing. And he says there is no correlation between the social media opinions and tone and what's happening in the real world. Because what's happening on social media is such a small minority of the population. So even the Bud Light thing, did that really reflect the whole population? Probably not. But it was just such a vocal backlash.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this street, kind of guerrilla type marketing that you're talking about is just one way really to spur word of mouth marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing about word of mouth marketing, and let's get back to the premise of the book, Audacious, How Humans Win in an AI Marketing World. Where do we survive? Where do we thrive? Well, let me tell you something, and this is something every marketer knows deep in their heart. Word of mouth marketing, when people recommend your product to other people, this is the most trusted, unadulterated, purest form of marketing and advertising you could ever hope for. It is the
100%.
most believed, and it's where the sales happen. That's what drives your sales. Not an ad on Facebook. Well, could, but it's word of mouth. It's powerful. Now, how many companies do you know who have a line item in their marketing budget for word of mouth marketing?
None.
None.
Nobody's even thinking about that in their
None.
strategy.
But we know it's the best.
Mm-hmm.
We know it works.
Mm-hmm.
And we know AI can't touch it. It's all us. It's
Mm-hmm.
all us. We're going to create those conversations. We're going to ignite those conversations. It's people to people. And so it's there's lots of ways to create those word of mouth marketing conversations. I hit some of the highlights in the book, but the big idea is, look, get it on your radar screen.
Yeah, exactly. Just think about it for a second. Think about what can you do to influence or inspire word of mouth marketing. I mean, yes, you want to deliver on your promise. So you want to have a good product or a good
Yeah,
service. But
absolutely.
beyond that, like to me, that's ground floor. That's the basic. But beyond that, what can you do to create a reason for people to want to talk about your business? And that to me was a really key part of the book. Like I said, I have this AI event coming up, and reading that in the book made me start thinking about what can I do to make that word of mouth marketing in the forefront of my brain. Like, what can I do? Like, what can I do to make it so good people want to talk about it? And I
Yeah,
think that's the
exactly.
way you have to look at it. I'm not trying to
Exactly.
manipulate people or coerce people into, oh, you have to post a selfie on social media before you enter the room. Like, we're not trying to do that. It's like, how do you actually create the magic worth sharing? And
Hmm.
so I love that part of the book. Um,
Thank you.
I'm curious, this is kind of book related and kind of not book related. Um, what your thoughts are right now related to SEO and AI driven search. Where do you think that's going, and what do you think people should be thinking about when it comes to that?
Nobody really knows, but some people are pretending to know. So I heard this statistic yesterday. I have not validated this myself, but this person who is an SEO, an AI expert,
Mm-hmm.
told me that the traffic to HubSpot's website has declined by 50%. Now, HubSpot is sort of the poster child for inbound marketing, content marketing. Creating content that's so worthy that, magically people will find this, they'll align with these interests, and they'll find you through their search and research, and that creates these inbound leads. Now, we know that it's been working a lot less effectively than it used to for lots of different reasons. But the main one today is that Google is keeping a lot of that search themselves, and they're answering your questions through AI at an increasingly effective rate. So you get a knowledge box at the top of your screen.
Yeah.
And, whenever you ask a question, it doesn't send you to links. It answers the question with AI. So, this is a dramatic impact on search. I am the amount of traffic to my website that's coming from ChatGPT has quadrupled in the last since the beginning of the year. So in just a couple of months, I have got 2 customers from ChatGPT. They did a search, for, best digital marketing consultant, and I came up on a list, and they went to my website, and they hired me. Now, this is sort of a two-edged sword. So, how do we show up in AI? It's the same way we show up in SEO. It is. It's the only way. You've got to put content out there. That is the foundation of your personal brand. Now, why do I say it's a two-edged sword? Because there was a thing going around this week that it's a little search engine published by Atlantic Magazine where you can put your name in there and see if your books have been scraped to be used in Meta's AI. All my books are in Meta's AI. Now,
Meta's AI is so bad, I think. They're probably
hard
working
to
on
know.
improving it, but
It's hard to know. I don't think you and I are probably the main customers for Meta's AI right now. It's embedded in a lot of their tools, but basically, Meta is creating, an open source AI. And so like developers would be more of a
right,
customer than we would. But so, okay, I've blogged, for 15 years. It's out there. It's
right.
free. It's public. I've had a podcast for 12 years. So, if they're scraping that content, well, maybe that's
How do
fair
you
game.
feel about them scraping your books?
Well, that's the thing. It took me 2 years to write that book.
Yeah,
Any of my books, and guess what? You can get 2 years of my life for $20. It's just not much. It's less than a meal at Shoney's. Just give me the $20 for the book, right? Just give me a break. But so, I do have some strong feelings about that. Is that helping me rise to the top of the search engines with AI?
right.
Maybe, maybe, and getting one new customer is going to be more valuable than selling a book. So it's a two-edged sword.
I've done some I've queried AI on how to better optimize content for AI search. And it's interesting to me the recommendations that it provides you on how to optimize some of the content that you all have already written
Yeah.
for AI. But I'm not, I think I'm an AI generalist. I think I'm a good teacher of what I know in terms of how to use it. I'm definitely not an AI expert.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting. The way that I've been describing it to my clients is, SEO is more keyword phrase oriented. You're trying to match a keyword phrase to a query that somebody has.
Yeah.
And AI is more journey driven, which means that you need more of those next steps. Now, I know that having FAQs is good for SEO as well, but it's like being able to anticipate the next thing that somebody needs when you're writing content, very much like AI is anticipating the next thing you might need when you put something into AI. Does that make sense at all to you?
Well, just in the last week or so, I've been seeing some articles about specific things that you might be able to do to optimize your content for AI. I mean, honestly, this has been a busy week for me, so I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. But I think the general idea is still the same. And I think, in a way, the days of keywords are kind of over.
Right,
With the way people search, they don't search for a keyword. They put the whole question in there.
right,
What is the best way to take this medication, right? So that really needs to be the headline for your content.
right,
You need to be answering questions in your content, no matter what it is. And,
right,
and that's going to fuel AI too, right?
right.
So, when you get that little knowledge box at the top, usually there's a link associated with it. It's the business that answered the question the best.
Right, right, 100%. All right. Um, I think I only have one more question for you. It's a
Well,
personal
that's too
question.
bad.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and
Thank you.
I booked you for 45 minutes, so I don't want to go over. I could keep you here for hours and do like a Tim Ferriss style interview and talk to you all afternoon, but I won't.
No.
Uh, so I read in your book that you grew up or live in Knoxville.
Hmm.
Are you a Tennessee Volunteers fan?
Well, I have to be. I live in
Okay.
Knoxville.
All right. Okay. So I like
That's
you
what,
even more now. I'm a Tennessee fan too. So,
yeah.
so
Well, I mean, it's a fun. I mean, living in a college town. I mean, I didn't grow up here, but I moved here, maybe 30 years ago, and I've just grown to love the town and the people and the university. And it's just you're living in a college town. It's just a great spirit.
yeah.
It's a spectacle. It brings people together. I mean, we talked about this idea of awe, right?
Yes.
So I mean, if I watch the football game on TV, that's really it could be fun and entertaining. But if you go to the game and you see the fireworks and the band and the mascot and all this stuff happening, and the music, it's like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I went to my first Tennessee game last fall, and
Oh,
we did the tailgating,
oh
we
wow.
did the parade, we got into the stadium.
Well, you,
Um,
you came down to Knoxville?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you have to tell me if you do it again, so we can say hi.
Yeah, for sure, I will. My husband's been a Tennessee fan for like, I don't know, almost 2 decades. And so after probably the first decade of watching games, because he was watching games, all of a sudden I became a fan too. So like I have my own Tennessee gear now, and I
Oh, good
like
for you.
cannot wait to watch the basketball game tomorrow night. And
Yeah,
so yeah. Anyways, I just thought that was cool when I was reading that in your book. We
yeah.
needed to ask you because that was something that we have in common, which is great.
That's good. That's good. Yeah,
And I'll
yeah.
definitely let you know because we will be there. It's our goal to go to at least one game per season. I'm in Florida right now, but we actually have a place in Ellijay, Georgia as well. So we're about a 3.5 hour
Yeah.
drive away, I think. No,
Yeah.
not even to
Yeah.
Knoxville.
Not
So
too bad. Not too
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks
yeah,
for having me today. Thanks for reading my book. You
yeah.
showed me a picture of your book with all the post-it notes in it, and
Yeah, and it's got
there's
underlined and
yeah,
stars and all kinds of stuff in it. So thank you, Mark. Guys, you've
yeah.
got to read Audacious. It is a fantastic, fantastic book. I highly, highly recommend it. It's my favorite book of yours yet. And
Aw.
like I am literally, I've already bought other copies. Like I've already sent a copy of this to my marketing manager and plan to buy them for my clients because I want people thinking this way
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
their marketing. I really believe that we have the power to differentiate ourselves and that the people that there's so many people that are looking for the easy button and they're just going to use AI.
yeah,
And those people are not, that's not a competitive advantage. The
And
competitive
someone,
advantage is to create the awe, to think different, to focus
yeah,
on the word of mouth, like all of that stuff.
someone had a really great analogy for me. They said using AI for your content is like bringing store bought cookies to a bake sale.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it
I
kind of
agree.
works. It kind of works, but you want the imperfect one. You want the chunky ones that
Yes,
really came from someone's kitchen.
exactly.
That's what brought you to the bake sale.
Yeah. All I could think of is, if AI was commenting on all of my social media posts and then I ran into somebody in person
Yeah,
and they thought that I was the one commenting, how could
yeah,
I even have a conversation with them if I
yeah,
didn't have any context to the conversation that I supposedly had online?
yeah.
Anyways, to
It,
me,
it, it's
it's
a
not worth it.
betrayal. It goes to the very early days of social media when people started to outsource their engagement. And I'll never forget this story about a young woman who was engaging with this executive at a company. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so humbled. And he's engaging with me. And she ended up meeting this guy like at a party and introduced herself. And he just had a complete blank look on his face. He didn't know her, he had never heard of her. And she realized that his administrative assistant was doing all the engagement for him. And she just felt such a betrayal that she
Yeah.
never forgot it. And I mean, that's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It might even be time to update your LinkedIn profiles to say all comments are mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
This account is managed by a human.
Right. Right.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. Great to see you. Thanks for the
Thanks for your
great
time.
book. And we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye for now.